The bounty hunter rode into Florissant, Colorado on a Tuesday morning in late August of 1878, his saddlebags heavy with gold coins and his conscience surprisingly light for a man who had just collected payment on 3 wanted men. Logan Jameson had been tracking outlaws for the better part of 5 years, and the reward money from his latest job represented more wealth than most men in these parts would see in a lifetime. He was 30 years old, weathered by sun and circumstance, with dark hair that touched his collar and eyes the color of storm clouds rolling over the Rockies. He had no family to speak of, no home except whatever town he found himself in, and no particular plans beyond finding a hot meal and a soft bed. The town itself sat nestled in a valley surrounded by towering pines and mountain peaks that still held patches of snow even in summer. Main Street was dusty and lined with the usual establishments: a general store, a saloon, a bank, a livery stable, and a modest hotel. Logan guided his horse toward the livery, noting the unusual quietness of midday. A few women hurried past with their market baskets, their eyes downcast, and a cluster of men stood outside the bank in heated discussion. As Logan dismounted, the livery owner, a grizzled man with tobacco-stained whiskers, approached with a knowing look. "You hear about the Morrison situation?" "I do not know anything about any situation," Logan replied, stretching his back after days in the saddle. "Just passing through." "Figured you might be another one of them debt collectors," the man said, spitting into the dirt. "That poor widow has had 3 different men come by in the past month, all wanting their pound of flesh. Her husband, Thomas Morrison, died 6 months back, left her with 4 young ones and debts that would choke a mule." Logan felt an unwelcome pang of curiosity. "What happened to the husband?" "Mine accident up in Cripple Creek. He was not a bad man, just unlucky at cards and too trusting with his business partners. Took out loans he could not pay back, made promises he could not keep. Now, Eleanor Morrison is trying to hold together that little ranch of theirs while men come knocking, threatening to take everything she has got." The name stuck with Logan as he paid for his horse's care and made his way toward the hotel. Eleanor Morrison. He found himself wondering what kind of woman could manage 4 children alone while fighting off creditors. The West was hard on women even in the best circumstances, and widowhood with debt was about as bad as circumstances could get. He checked into his room and cleaned up, but the story nagged at him through his meal at the hotel restaurant. The waitress, a plump woman named Martha, was happy to elaborate when he asked casual questions. "Eleanor is a saint, that is what she is," Martha said, refilling his coffee. "Those children are well behaved and clean despite everything. The oldest boy, Samuel, is only 12, but he works like a man. Then there is Margaret, who is 10, and the twins, Joseph and Julia, just turned 7. Eleanor takes in sewing and washing, and she sold off most of their livestock just to keep the bank from foreclosing. But there is still so much debt. Thomas owed money to the bank, to the general store, to a businessman down in Colorado Springs, and to some unsavory characters who loaned him cash for a mining venture that never panned out." "How much does she owe?" Martha shook her head. "I heard tell it is close to $3,000 altogether. Might as well be $3 million for a woman in her position. She is 27 years old and looks 40 from the worry. It breaks my heart to see her struggling like that. $3,000. Logan had nearly twice that amount in his saddlebags. The thought came to him unbidden and unwelcome. He was not a charitable man by nature. Bounty hunting had taught him to be hard, to think of himself first, to trust no one. Money meant survival, meant freedom, meant the difference between sleeping under the stars and having a roof over his head when the snow came. But that night, lying in his hotel bed, Logan could not stop thinking about Eleanor Morrison and her 4 children. He had grown up without a father himself, raised by a mother who worked her fingers to the bone in a St. Louis laundry until consumption took her when Logan was 16. He remembered the constant fear, the gnawing hunger, the shame of poverty. He remembered men coming to their door demanding payment for this or that, remembered his mother's tired eyes and defeated shoulders. Morning found him asking directions to the Morrison ranch. He told himself he just wanted to see the situation for himself, to understand what he was considering. The ride took him 3 miles outside town, through rolling grassland studded with wildflowers and bordered by dense pine forests. The ranch itself was modest, a small house with a sagging porch, a barn that needed new paint, a chicken coop, and a corral that held 2 horses and a milk cow. Logan approached slowly, taking in the details. Laundry hung on a line, snapping in the breeze. A vegetable garden showed signs of careful tending despite the dry summer. Firewood was stacked neatly against the house. Someone was trying hard to maintain order against overwhelming odds. A boy emerged from the barn, stopping short when he saw Logan. He had sandy hair and his father's clothes cut down to fit his smaller frame. This would be Samuel, the 12-year-old. The boy's hand moved instinctively toward a pitchfork leaning against the barn door. "We do not have any money," Samuel called out, his voice trying for authority but cracking with youth and fear. "My mother is not here right now." Logan raised his hands in a peaceful gesture and dismounted. "I am not here to collect anything, son. I am just passing through and heard your family might need some help. We do not take charity." The boy's chin lifted with pride that reminded Logan achingly of himself at that age. Not offering charity, just offering to talk to your mother about her situation. When will she be back? Before Samuel could answer, a girl appeared in the doorway of the house, wiping her hands on an apron. Margaret, most likely. She had dark braids and watchful eyes. "Samuel, who is that? Go back inside, Meg," Samuel ordered, but the girl stayed put. The sound of an approaching wagon saved them all from further awkwardness. Logan turned to see a buckboard coming up the road, driven by a woman whose posture spoke of bone-deep exhaustion. Eleanor Morrison. She was slender in the way of someone who worked too hard and ate too little, with auburn hair pulled back in a simple bun. Her dress was faded but clean, and her face, though lined with worry, held a quiet beauty that caught Logan off guard. She was younger than he expected somehow, despite Martha's mention of her age. There was something undefeated in her green eyes even as she took in the sight of a strange man on her property. She pulled the wagon to a stop and climbed down with practiced ease, her expression carefully neutral. "Can I help you, Mrs. Morrison? My name is Logan Jameson. I am not here to cause you trouble. I heard about your situation in town and I would like to discuss a possible arrangement." Her shoulders stiffened. "If you are here about my husband's debts, you will need to get in line. I am paying what I can when I can. The bank has first claim and everything else will have to wait. I am not a creditor, madam. Quite the opposite, actually." Logan paused, weighing his words. "I am a bounty hunter, just came into some money. I have been thinking about settling down, maybe buying some land around here. I heard you might be willing to sell." It was not exactly a lie, though it was not exactly the truth either. Logan had no real plans to settle down, but the words came easily enough. Eleanor's expression shifted from wary to confused. "This land is not worth much, Mr. Jameson, and it is not fully mine to sell while there are liens against it. What if someone were to pay off those liens, clear the debts? Would you consider selling then?" She stared at him as if he had spoken a foreign language. Behind her, the children had gathered, Samuel and Margaret, and now two smaller figures emerged from the house, identical twins with matching curious expressions. Joseph and Julia. "Why would anyone do that?" Eleanor asked quietly. "Because I can, and because I need land." Logan met her gaze steadily. "I am willing to pay $3,000 to clear your debts and another $1,000 for the property itself. That would give you $4,000 to start fresh somewhere, with no obligations hanging over your head." Eleanor's face went pale, then flushed. "That is insane. This property is not worth anywhere near $4,000, and I do not understand why a stranger would offer such a thing. Maybe I am tired of drifting. Maybe I see a good piece of land and a chance to put down roots." Logan kept his voice even. "You would have enough money to move to Denver or Colorado Springs, start over without your husband's debts following you. Your children could have new opportunities." "This is our home," Samuel interjected hotly. "We are not leaving." Eleanor held up a hand to silence her son, her eyes never leaving Logan's face. She was studying him, trying to puzzle out his motives, and Logan made himself stand still under that searching gaze. He could see the calculations happening behind her eyes, the desperate hope warring with suspicion. "There must be something you want besides this land," she said finally. "No one parts with that kind of money out of pure generosity." Logan had known this moment would come, had known he would need to be honest, or at least more honest than he had been. "You are right. I do want something more." He took a breath. "I want a family. I am 30 years old, Mrs. Morrison, and I have spent the last 5 years tracking dangerous men across 3 territories. I have money but no home, no wife, no children. I see you here with your 4 kids, trying to hold things together against impossible odds, and I see an opportunity for both of us." "What kind of opportunity?" Her voice had gone very quiet. "I pay off all your debts, every penny. In return, you agree to marry me. You keep your land, your home. Your children stay right here where they belong. I provide for all of you, give your kids my name and protection, help you run this ranch properly. We build a life together." The silence that followed was broken only by the wind in the pines and the distant call of a crow. Eleanor's face had gone through shock, disbelief, and was settling into something harder to read. "You want to buy a wife," she said flatly. "I want to offer a practical solution to both our problems. You need someone to clear your debts and help you survive. I need a reason to stop running and a family to come home to. Marriage would give us both those things. You do not even know me. I do not know you. You could be anyone, could have any kind of terrible secrets." "I could," Logan admitted, "but I do not. I am exactly what I appear to be, a bounty hunter with money and no ties, looking for a different kind of life. You can ask around town about me, check my reputation. I have never harmed a woman or child, never broken my word. I am not offering romance, Mrs. Morrison. I am offering security." Eleanor's hands had clenched into fists at her sides. "This is madness. People do not just marry strangers because it is practical. People in the West marry for practical reasons all the time. How many mail-order brides come out here to marry men they have never met? How many widows marry their late husband's brothers or business partners to keep a roof over their heads? This is not so different." "Mama, do not listen to him," Samuel said urgently. "We will figure something out. We always do." But Eleanor was shaking her head slowly, and Logan could see that she was truly considering it. She was a practical woman who had run out of options, and he was offering her something she could not refuse, no matter how strange the terms. "I need time to think," she said finally. "This is not a decision I can make standing in my yard with a stranger." "Fair enough. I will be staying at the hotel in town for the next week. You can send word when you have decided, or come talk to me there." Logan tipped his hat. For what it is worth, Mrs. Morrison, I mean every word. I would treat you and your children with respect and provide for you properly. You would never have to worry about money again." He mounted his horse and rode away, feeling the weight of 5 pairs of eyes on his back. Only when he was out of sight of the house did he allow himself to question what he had just done. The proposal had seemed logical in his mind, a good use of his money and a solution to his own rootless existence. But now, replaying the shock on Eleanor Morrison's face, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The week that followed was strange for Logan. He found himself unable to leave Florissant, despite having no real reason to stay beyond waiting for Eleanor's answer. He spent his days walking the town, getting to know the people and the land. He learned that Thomas Morrison had been well liked despite his debts, that Eleanor had been a schoolteacher before her marriage, that the children were known as good kids who helped their mother without complaint. He also learned the extent of the debt. The bank held a note for $1,500, 6 months overdue. The general store was owed $300 for supplies. A businessman named Carlton Hughes from Colorado Springs had loaned Thomas $800 for a mining claim that produced nothing. And there were gambling debts totaling $400 to various men, some of whom were not the patient type. On the 5th day, Logan was sitting in the hotel restaurant when Margaret Morrison appeared in the doorway, looking small and nervous. He stood immediately. "Miss Margaret, is everything all right? Mama sent me to tell you she wants to talk. She is at the general store buying some things. She said if you are still interested in your proposal, you should meet her there." Logan's heart kicked against his ribs. "Tell your mother I will be right there." The girl nodded and disappeared. Logan paid his bill, settled his hat, and walked the short distance to the general store with something that felt uncomfortably like fear in his chest. He found Eleanor in the back of the store, examining a bolt of fabric with her fingers but clearly not seeing it. "Mrs. Morrison." She turned, and he was struck again by the evidence of strain in her face. She had not been sleeping well, he could tell. "Mr. Jameson, I have thought about your proposal very carefully. And I need to understand something first. Why me? Why this particular situation? There are plenty of women who would marry a man with your resources. Why propose to a widow with 4 children and crushing debt?" Logan had known he would need to answer this. "Because those children need a father and you need a partner. Because I grew up watching my mother struggle alone, and I swore if I ever had the means, I would help someone in that position. Because I have lived a hard life with little softness in it, and the idea of a family, a real home, sounds like something worth having. You and your children represent that possibility. You understand that I do not love you," Eleanor said bluntly. "I barely know you. My husband has been dead only 6 months. My heart is not available. I understand. I am not asking for your heart, just your partnership. We can build respect and friendship, and maybe that is enough." Eleanor took a shaky breath. "If I agree to this, I need your word on certain things. My children's safety and well-being come first always. You will not mistreat them or me. We will have separate rooms until such time as I decide otherwise. You will consult me on decisions regarding the ranch and the household, and if you prove to be cruel or dangerous in any way, the agreement is void." "You have my word on all of that," Logan said solemnly. "I would add one condition of my own. You give this marriage a real chance. I am not asking you to fall in love with me, but I am asking you not to shut the door completely on the possibility that we might build something good together." Eleanor studied him for a long moment, then extended her hand. "All right, Mr. Jameson, I accept your proposal, but I want to be clear that this is a business arrangement first and foremost." Logan took her hand, feeling the calluses from hard work, the slight tremor of nerves. "Understood. We will do this properly. I will pay off your debts tomorrow, and we can be married by the end of the week if that suits you." "The end of the week," Eleanor repeated, looking dazed. "I cannot believe I am agreeing to this. You are doing what you need to do for your children. There is no shame in that." Over the next 3 days, Logan set about making good on his promise. He visited the bank first, presenting the manager with payment in full for the Morrison loan. The banker, a portly man named Hutchins, looked stunned as Logan counted out gold coins. "This clears the Morrison debt completely." Logan confirmed. "Yes, completely. Mr. Jameson, might I ask your relationship to Mrs. Morrison? I am her fiancé. We will be married this Saturday." The news spread through Florissant like wildfire. By noon, everyone knew that Eleanor Morrison was marrying the bounty hunter who had ridden into town with enough money to clear her debts. The reactions were mixed. Some thought Eleanor was being practical and smart. Others whispered that it was unseemly to remarry so soon after Thomas's death, and to a stranger no less. Logan paid off the general store debt, settled the gambling obligations, and finally rode to Colorado Springs to deal with Carlton Hughes. The businessman turned out to be a snake of a man who had loaned Thomas Morrison money at outrageous interest rates, knowing the miner would likely never be able to repay. "You are paying off Morrison's debt?" Hughes asked, his calculating eyes assessing Logan. "That is interesting. What is your stake in this?" "I am marrying his widow. The debt dies with him, and I want no outstanding obligations attached to my wife." Hughes named a figure that was higher than the original loan, including interest that seemed excessive. Logan negotiated it down to a number that was still too high but fair enough, paid in cash, and got a signed document stating the debt was satisfied in full. When he returned to Florissant, he found Eleanor waiting at the hotel. She looked exhausted but relieved. "The bank manager told me everything is settled," she said. "I can scarcely believe it. I have been carrying that weight for so long I almost do not remember what it feels like to be free of it." "You are free of it now," Logan assured her. "Every debt is paid. Your land is yours, clear and unencumbered. I had the bank draw up a deed in your name." Eleanor's eyes widened. "In my name, not yours, in your name. I told you I was not trying to steal your land. This is your home, your children's inheritance. I am just asking to share it with you." For the first time since he had met her, Eleanor's careful control cracked. Tears welled in her eyes, and she pressed a hand to her mouth. "I do not know what to say. This is more than generous. It is beyond anything I could have hoped for." Logan felt awkward in the face of her emotion. "You do not have to say anything. Just let me be part of your family, and we will call it even." The wedding took place on Saturday morning in the small church at the edge of town. Eleanor wore a simple blue dress, and Logan had bought new clothes for the occasion. Samuel, Margaret, and the twins stood as witnesses, their expressions ranging from suspicious to curious. The preacher, an elderly man named Reverend Collins, conducted a brief ceremony that felt both momentous and mundane. "Do you, Logan Jameson, take Eleanor Morrison to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do." "And do you, Eleanor Morrison, take Logan Jameson to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Eleanor's voice was steady. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado, I pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride." Logan leaned in, intending just a brief, respectful kiss, but Eleanor met him halfway, her lips soft against his for just a moment. It was nothing passionate, but it was not entirely perfunctory either. It was a promise, or perhaps a hope. Afterward, there was a small gathering at the hotel restaurant. Martha and some of the other townspeople had prepared food, and there were toasts and well wishes. Logan watched Eleanor with her children, saw how Margaret clung to her mother's hand, how the twins seemed overwhelmed by the attention, how Samuel remained watchful and protective. These were his family now, for better or worse. Moving into the Morrison house felt strange. Logan took the small room that had been Thomas's study, leaving Eleanor the bedroom she had shared with her late husband. He spent the first few days repairing things around the property, fixing the sagging porch, patching holes in the barn roof, mending fences. The work was different from tracking outlaws, but satisfying in its own way. Samuel remained wary, watching Logan's every move with suspicion. On the fourth day, Logan invited the boy to help him fix the corral gate. "You do not have to like me," Logan said as they worked. "I know this is hard for you. Your father has not been gone long, and here I am, a stranger in his place." "You are not in his place," Samuel said hotly. "You could never be. You are right. I am not trying to replace your father. I am just trying to be someone your mother can rely on, someone who will help keep your family safe and fed. We were managing fine on our own." "No, you were not." Logan kept his voice gentle but firm. "Your mother was exhausted. You were working like a grown man when you should be in school, and the debt was going to take everything eventually. There is no shame in accepting help." Samuel was quiet for a long moment. "She cries at night sometimes. She tries to be quiet, but I hear her. She misses my father." Logan felt a pang in his chest. "I imagine she does. That is all right. She is allowed to grieve. I am not trying to take away her memories or her pain. I am just trying to give her a future that is not so hard." "What do you get out of it?" Samuel asked, echoing his mother's question from that first day. "What do you really want?" "Honestly, I am tired of being alone. I have spent years hunting men, sleeping on the ground, never staying in one place. I want what your parents had. A home, a family, a reason to wake up in the morning that is not about the next bounty. I am hoping your mother and you kids can give me that." Samuel did not respond, but his expression softened slightly. It was not acceptance, but it was not outright hostility either. Logan would take it. With Margaret, things were different. The 10-year-old was more openly curious about Logan, asking him questions about his life as a bounty hunter, about the places he had been, the things he had seen. She had her mother's intelligence and a hunger for knowledge that reminded Logan of Eleanor's background as a teacher. "Did you ever shoot anyone?" Margaret asked one evening as Logan helped her carry water from the well. "Margaret," Eleanor's voice came sharp from the porch. "That is not an appropriate question." "It is all right," Logan said. "Yes, Miss Margaret, I have shot people, but only when they were trying to shoot me first, and only because it was my job to bring them in. It is not something I am proud of or something I did lightly." "Were you scared?" "Every time. Anyone who says they are not scared in a gunfight is either lying or too stupid to live long." Margaret absorbed this seriously. "I am glad you are not doing that anymore. I would not want you to get shot." The simple statement, spoken with a child's directness, hit Logan harder than he expected. "I am glad too." The twins, Joseph and Julia, were the easiest. At 7, they had vaguer memories of their father and were more accepting of change. Joseph was fascinated by Logan's horse and guns, while Julia liked to follow him around, chattering about her chickens and her favorite doll. Logan found himself charmed by their innocence, their resilience, but it was Eleanor who remained the puzzle. She was polite and efficient, running the household with quiet competence, but there was a wall between them that Logan could not breach. They worked side by side during the day, shared meals with the children, but there was no real warmth, no intimacy beyond the practical necessities of living together. One night, about 3 weeks after the wedding, Logan found Eleanor sitting on the porch long after the children had gone to bed. She was staring out at the dark mountains, her arms wrapped around herself despite the warm night. "Mind if I join you?" Logan asked. She shook her head, and he settled into the chair beside hers. For a while they sat in silence, listening to the crickets and the distant howl of a coyote. "I am trying," Eleanor said finally, her voice low. "I know I agreed to this marriage, and I know you have been more than generous. You have given me everything you promised and more, but I feel like I am betraying Thomas every day." Logan's chest tightened. "You are not betraying him. You are surviving. You are taking care of your children. That is what he would have wanted." "Is it?" Eleanor turned to look at him, and in the moonlight he could see tears on her cheeks. "Or would he be devastated to know I married someone else so quickly? That I am sharing his home, his life, with a man I barely know? He would understand that you did what you had to do. And Eleanor, you are not sharing your life with me, not really. I am just here, a fixture, someone who fixes things and pays bills. That is not a marriage, not truly." "What do you want from me?" The question came out almost as a cry. "I am doing everything I can. I cook your meals, I keep your house. I am civil and respectful. What more can I give you when my heart is still buried with my husband?" Logan stood, moving to the porch rail, putting distance between them because her pain was too raw, too immediate. "I want you to stop feeling guilty for being alive. I want you to look at me and see a partner instead of an intruder. I want to know what you are thinking beyond just the practical matters of the day. But mostly, Eleanor, I want you to be honest with me. If this arrangement is not working for you, if you are miserable, then we need to talk about it." "I am not miserable," Eleanor said quietly. "That is what makes it so confusing. My life is better now than it has been in over a year. The children are happier, healthier. I do not wake up every morning in a panic about how I will feed them or which creditor will come calling. You have been kind and patient and respectful. But I feel like I am supposed to feel something for you, and I do not, and that makes me feel like a failure. You are not supposed to feel anything except whatever you genuinely feel. We went into this with clear expectations. You do not owe me love or passion or even friendship if it is not there naturally." Eleanor stood and moved to stand beside him at the rail. "What about you? Do you feel something for me?" The question caught Logan off guard. He had been so focused on Eleanor's feelings, on making sure she and the children were comfortable, that he had not examined his own heart. But now, forced to consider it, he realized the truth. "Yes," he said simply. "I do. I feel respect for your strength, admiration for how you have raised your children, appreciation for your intelligence and capability. And I feel drawn to you in ways I did not expect. I find myself wanting to make you smile, wanting to ease your burdens, wanting to know everything about you. I am not sure if that is love, but it is something." Eleanor absorbed this, her expression unreadable. "I do not know if I can give you what you want. I am not asking you to. I am just being honest because you asked." Logan turned to face her fully. "But Eleanor, I need you to know that I will wait. However long it takes for you to feel comfortable with me, however long you need to grieve, I will wait. And if that feeling never comes, if we remain partners in name only, I will accept that too. You gave me a home and a family, and that is more than I had any right to expect." She looked up at him, her green eyes searching his face in the darkness. "You are a good man, Logan Jameson, better than I gave you credit for when you first rode up to my house with your impossible offer. I am sorry if I have been cold. You have not been cold. You have been careful, and you have every right to be." Logan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "We will figure this out together, all right. No pressure, no expectations. We will just take each day as it comes." Eleanor nodded, and for the first time since their wedding she leaned into his touch slightly. It was barely perceptible, but Logan felt it like a lightning strike. Hope bloomed in his chest, fragile and uncertain but undeniably real. The seasons changed, summer fading into autumn, and the rhythm of ranch life continued. Logan hired a hand to help with the heavier work, a young man named Peter who lived in town and came out 3 days a week. With the extra help, Logan had time to teach Samuel proper riding and roping skills. The boy was finally warming to him, occasionally seeking out his advice or company without being asked. Margaret had started calling Logan Papa Logan at her mother's urging, and the twins had shortened it to just Papa. Each time he heard it, Logan felt a fierce protective surge. These children were his now, as surely as if they had been born to him. Eleanor remained reserved but less distant. She had begun sitting with Logan in the evenings, sometimes reading while he worked on tack or cleaned his guns. They talked about small things: the children's progress in school, plans for the spring planting, news from town. Nothing deep or personal, but it was companionship, and Logan treasured it. In October, the first snow came early, dusting the mountains white and bringing a cold snap that required extra firewood and warm blankets. Logan was in the barn one evening, checking on the animals, when Eleanor appeared with a steaming cup of coffee. "Thought you might need this," she said, handing it to him. "Thank you." Logan wrapped his hands around the warm cup, grateful for her thoughtfulness. Eleanor lingered, which was unusual. "Logan, I want to ask you something, but I am not sure how. Just ask." "Whatever it is, I will answer honestly. When you were tracking outlaws, did you ever kill someone who did not deserve it? Someone who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time?" Logan set down his coffee carefully. "No, I was careful about that. I only took bounties on men who were genuinely dangerous, who had hurt people, and I always gave them a chance to surrender. Not all of them took it, but I offered it every time." "Why did you stop? You said you were tired of it, but there is more to it than that, is there not?" Logan had known this conversation would come eventually. "There was a job about 6 months before I came here. A man named Jack Carver who had killed 3 people in a robbery. I tracked him to a farm outside Pueblo. When I confronted him, he drew on me and I shot him. But it turned out he had a wife and 2 little kids hiding in the farmhouse. They came running out when they heard the gunshot, and I had to watch those children see their father dead in the dirt." Eleanor's hand came to rest on his arm. "That was not your fault. He chose to be an outlaw, chose to draw on you. I know. But those kids crying over their father, that wife becoming a widow right in front of me, it made me see my life differently. I realized I was surrounded by death all the time, causing it even when it was justified. I started thinking about what I wanted my life to be, and the answer was not more killing, not more loneliness on the trail. I wanted something better, something that built things up instead of tearing them down. That is when I decided to find a different path. And you found me. I found you." Logan turned to face her. "And I have not regretted it for a single moment, even when you look at me like a stranger." "I do not look at you like a stranger anymore," Eleanor said softly. "Somewhere along the way you became familiar. The children love you, I think. Samuel is less angry, Margaret talks about you constantly, and the twins follow you around like baby ducks. What about you? How do you feel about me?" Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "I feel safe with you. I feel grateful. I feel like maybe I am starting to see you as Logan, not just as the man who saved us. Is that enough for now?" "That is more than enough." Logan reached out and took her hand, and this time she did not pull away. They stood there in the barn, hands linked, while snow began to fall outside and the animals shifted in their stalls. It was a small moment, but it felt monumental. Winter settled over Florissant with serious determination. Logan made sure the house was tightly sealed against the cold, that there was enough firewood to last through the worst storms, that the pantry was well stocked. The children had to stay home from school on the worst days, and Eleanor would teach them lessons by the fire while Logan worked on indoor projects. One particularly harsh evening in late December, when the wind howled like wolves and snow piled against the windows, Logan and Eleanor found themselves alone in the main room. The children had gone to bed early, exhausted from playing in the snow all day. "This reminds me of winters when I was growing up in Ohio," Eleanor said, staring into the fire. "My father was a minister, and we lived in a small parsonage. Winters were brutal, but we were happy. My mother would tell stories, and my father would read from books of poetry." "You have not talked much about your family before," Logan observed, settling into the chair across from her. "They died when I was 19. Cholera epidemic. I was teaching at a small school in Denver by then, and by the time I got word and traveled back, it was too late. I met Thomas a year later. He was working at a hotel where I was staying, and he was so charming, so full of plans and dreams. I think I fell in love with his optimism as much as with him. He sounds like a good man. He was. He truly was, but he was not practical. He always thought the next big opportunity was just around the corner. The next mining claim would be the one that paid off. He could not see that what we had was already enough. And that inability to be content is what killed him in the end. He took risks he should not have taken, borrowed money he could not repay, went into that mine when everyone said it was not safe." There was bitterness in her voice now, mixed with grief. "I was so angry at him when he died. Angry that he left me, angry that he left our children, angry that his choices became my burden. It felt terrible to be furious with a dead man, but I could not help it." Logan moved to sit on the floor beside her chair, looking up at her. "You are allowed to be angry. Love is complicated. People can be both wonderful and frustrating, and death does not erase the complicated parts. When you came along with your offer, part of me felt like I was betraying Thomas, but another part felt like I was finally escaping the consequences of his choices. That made me feel so guilty." Eleanor's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "How do I honor his memory while building a new life? By remembering the good parts, teaching your children about their father and forgiving him for the mistakes, and by letting yourself move forward without shame. Eleanor, you are alive. You deserve to have a life, to be happy, to find joy again. Is that what you want? For me to be happy, more than anything?" Eleanor reached down and touched his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "You are very patient with me. I would wait forever if that is what you needed." She smiled then, a real smile that transformed her face, and Logan felt his heart stutter. "I do not think it will take forever. You are wearing down my defenses, Logan Jameson." Christmas came, and Logan bought gifts for everyone. For Samuel, a new rifle and ammunition. For Margaret, books she had mentioned wanting. For the twins, matching carved horses that a craftsman in town had made. For Eleanor, a beautiful shawl made of soft wool in a deep green that matched her eyes, and a pair of leather gloves that were both practical and fine. Eleanor gave him a shirt she had sewn herself, perfectly fitted and made with obvious care. She also gave him something else, a small framed photograph of the family, taken by a traveling photographer who had passed through Florissant in November. In the photograph, Logan stood behind Eleanor with his hand on her shoulder, surrounded by the 4 children. They looked like a real family. So you remember what you have now, Eleanor said as he stared at the image. So you do not forget that you are not alone anymore. Logan pulled her into a hug, not caring that the children were watching. Thank you. This is the best gift I have ever received. That night, after the children were asleep, Eleanor knocked on Logan's door. When he opened it, she was standing in the hallway in her nightgown and robe, looking nervous but determined. "Can I come in?" "Of course." Logan stepped back, his heart pounding. Eleanor entered and closed the door behind her. "I have been thinking about what you said about being honest. So I am going to be honest. I am ready to try to truly be your wife. I'm not saying I am in love with you, but I am saying that I care about you, that I want to try to build a real marriage, not just a practical arrangement." Logan crossed the room and took her hands. "Are you sure?" "Eleanor, I do not want you to feel pressured. I am sure. You have been patient and kind and everything you promised to be, and I am tired of keeping you at a distance because I am afraid of what it might mean. I want to let you in. I want to see where this can go." Logan kissed her then, properly this time, and Eleanor kissed him back with a hesitant warmth that promised more as she grew comfortable. When they finally pulled apart, she was flushed and breathing quickly. "I am out of practice at this," she admitted. "We have time to figure it out together," Logan assured her. "No rush, no pressure. We will go at whatever pace feels right to you." Eleanor stayed that night and they talked for hours, sharing stories about their pasts, their hopes for the future, their fears and dreams. When she finally fell asleep in his arms, Logan lay awake, marveling at the turn his life had taken. He had come to Florissant a rootless drifter, and he was becoming a husband and father, part of something bigger and more important than he had ever imagined. The winter slowly gave way to spring, and with the warmer weather came a softening in Eleanor that Logan treasured. She smiled more often, laughed at his jokes, sought out his company. She started touching him casually, a hand on his arm as she passed, fingers brushing his as she handed him his coffee. Small gestures, but each one felt like a gift. In April, Eleanor announced that she was expecting a child. The news came as both of them sat on the porch one evening, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink. "Are you happy about it?" she asked, searching his face anxiously. "Happy, Eleanor, I am overjoyed." Logan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "A baby, our baby." "It might be too soon. People will talk, will count months. Let them talk. This is our life, our family. A child is a blessing, and I will not pretend otherwise." The children's reactions varied. Samuel looked uncomfortable with the idea but said nothing negative. Margaret was excited about having a baby in the house. The twins immediately started arguing about whether they wanted a brother or sister. As Eleanor's belly grew through the summer, Logan found himself falling completely, irrevocably in love with his wife. It was not just her physical beauty, though he thought she was lovely even with her changing shape. It was her strength, her intelligence, her dry sense of humor, the way she loved her children fiercely and was beginning to love him with equal intensity. They had moved into the same bedroom by mutual agreement, and Eleanor no longer held back her affection. She would reach for him at night, would kiss him goodbye when he left for town, would lean against him as they sat together in the evenings. She had stopped looking sad when she thought no one was watching, and the lines of worry had eased from her face. "I love you," Logan told her one night as they lay in bed, his hand resting on her rounded stomach. "I need you to know that. I love you completely." Eleanor was quiet for a moment, then turned to face him. "I love you too. I think I have for a while now, but I was afraid to say it, afraid it meant I was forgetting Thomas. But I have realized that is not how love works. The heart does not have a limited capacity. I can love Thomas's memory and love you as the man you are right now. Both things can be true." "That is all I ever wanted to hear," Logan said, his voice rough with emotion. The baby was born in November of 1879, a healthy boy with dark hair and his mother's green eyes. They named him Daniel Thomas Jameson, honoring Eleanor's late husband while giving the child Logan's surname. Logan held his son for the first time and felt a completeness he had never known was possible. Samuel, now 14, looked at the baby with obvious emotion. "He looks like Father did in the old photographs." "He does," Eleanor agreed. "Your father would have loved him." "I think he would have liked Logan too," Samuel said quietly. "I think he would be glad we are all okay." It was the first time Samuel had called him Logan instead of Mr. or Sir. And it felt like acceptance, like family. The next few years passed in a blur of happiness that Logan sometimes had to remind himself was real. Margaret grew into a lovely young woman who wanted to be a teacher like her mother. Samuel became Logan's right hand on the ranch, a responsible young man who was courting a girl from town. The twins, now 10, were wild and joyful and full of mischief. And Daniel was a cheerful toddler who followed his older siblings around and called Logan Papa with complete confidence. In the spring of 1882, Eleanor came to Logan with news that there was another child on the way. This time, there was no anxiety, just shared joy. Their daughter was born that December, a tiny thing with auburn hair and a determined expression. They named her Sarah, and she completed their family in ways Logan could not have articulated. The Morrison ranch prospered under Logan's management. He used his remaining bounty money wisely, investing in good breeding stock, improving the property, and hiring reliable help. The land that had nearly been lost to debt became a successful operation that provided well for the family. On a warm June evening in 1883, Logan and Eleanor sat on their porch watching their children play in the yard. Samuel was tossing a ball with Joseph, while Julia and Margaret played with baby Sarah. Daniel was attempting to climb a tree under everyone's watchful eyes. "Did you ever imagine this when you rode into Florissant 5 years ago?" Eleanor asked, leaning against Logan's shoulder. "No. I imagined maybe finding some land, maybe starting over. But this, a wife I love more than my own life, 6 children, a home that feels like heaven on earth. I could not have dreamed this big. I am glad you stopped that day, glad you were brave enough to make your outrageous proposal." Eleanor turned to kiss him softly. "You saved us, Logan. You saved all of us." "You saved me right back," Logan replied. "I was just existing before, not really living. You taught me what it means to have a purpose beyond survival, to be part of something bigger than myself." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the mountains, listening to their children's laughter, feeling the peace of a life well lived and a love hard won but deeply rooted. Samuel rode up then, dismounting with the easy grace of a born horseman. "Caroline said yes," he announced, grinning broadly. "We are getting married in September." Eleanor gasped with delight and rushed to hug her oldest son. Logan followed, clasping the young man's shoulder with pride. The family crowded around, everyone talking at once, making plans and offering congratulations. Later, when the excitement had died down and the children were settling for the night, Eleanor and Logan found themselves alone again under the stars. "Our family keeps growing," Eleanor mused. "Soon there will be grandchildren. I hope so. The more the merrier." Logan pulled her close. "Thank you, Eleanor, for saying yes that day, for giving us a chance, for loving me. Thank you for being the man who could look at a desperate widow with 4 children and see possibility instead of burden. Thank you for being patient while I found my way to loving you. Thank you for giving me a life I did not think was possible anymore." They kissed under the Colorado stars, surrounded by the home they had built together. The family they had created from desperation and determination, and eventually deep love. Logan had ridden into Florissant seeking nothing more than a hot meal and a soft bed, and he had found everything he never knew he needed. The years continued to unfold in cycles of seasons and celebrations. Samuel married his Caroline and built a house on the adjoining property, eventually giving Logan and Eleanor 3 grandchildren. Margaret went east to a teaching college, then returned to Florissant to teach at the local school, following in her mother's footsteps. Joseph and Julia, inseparable as always, grew into young adults who helped run the ranch with Logan. Daniel and Sarah, the children of Logan and Eleanor's love, grew up knowing nothing but security and affection. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1889, Logan and Eleanor renewed their vows in the same small church where they had first married. This time, the ceremony was full of love instead of practicality, their voices strong and certain as they pledged themselves to each other again. "I would do it all the same," Eleanor told him as they danced at the celebration afterward. "If I could go back to that day when you rode up to the house with your impossible offer, I would still say yes, even knowing how hard it would be at first, how long it would take me to open my heart. Because what we have now is worth everything." "I knew from the moment I saw you that you were strong," Logan replied. "I just did not know yet that you would become my whole world. You and our children, this life we have built together, it is more than I ever deserved but exactly what I needed." As the years passed and they grew older together, Logan never forgot where he had come from or how close he had come to living a very different life. Sometimes, when he sat on his porch in the quiet morning hours, he thought about the bounty hunter he had been. Hard, lonely, drifting. That man seemed like a stranger now. Eleanor would find him at those times, bringing him coffee, sitting beside him in the companionable silence of long marriage. She knew his thoughts without him speaking them, understood the gratitude he felt for the path his life had taken. No regrets. She would ask, the question that had become their private joke. "Not a single one," he would always answer. "You, only that I was so stubborn at the beginning, I wish I had let myself love you sooner. We had all the time we needed, and they did." Through all the years that followed, through joys and sorrows, through the growth of their family and the building of their legacy, Logan and Eleanor Jameson remained devoted to each other, and to the family they had created from desperation, determination, and eventually a love that transformed them both. The ranch continued to prosper, becoming known throughout Colorado as one of the finest operations in the territory. The Jameson name became synonymous with quality stock and honest dealing. Samuel took over more of the daily operations as Logan aged, but Logan never stopped working, never stopped finding satisfaction in the land and animals he tended. In 1895, when Colorado achieved statehood, the Jameson family celebrated along with the rest of the territory. They had been part of building this place, had survived its harsh conditions and prospered despite the challenges. Their children and grandchildren represented the future of Colorado, and Logan felt a fierce pride in that. Eleanor remained the heart of the family, the one everyone turned to for wisdom and comfort. She still took in sewing occasionally, not because she needed the money, but because she enjoyed the work and the connections it gave her to other women in town. She had become a beloved figure in Florissant, known for her generosity and practical help to families in need. "You have come full circle," Logan told her once. "You help others the way I tried to help you. The difference is that people trust me because they know me. You were a stranger offering something that seemed too good to be true. I still marvel at my courage in accepting your proposal." "It was not courage, it was desperation." "No," Eleanor corrected. "It was courage, Desperation would have been accepting any offer from any man. Courage was looking past your rough appearance and seeing the good heart underneath. Courage was trusting that you meant what you said, that you would keep your promises. I am glad I had that courage. As they moved into the new century together, Logan and Eleanor became the patriarch and matriarch of a large, thriving family. They had 6 children, 14 grandchildren, and eventually great-grandchildren who climbed on their knees and called them Gran and Grandpa. The original 4 children never forgot that Logan was not their biological father, but they loved him no less for it. He had earned the title of father through years of patience, support, and unconditional love. At family gatherings, they would tell their own children the story of how Logan had ridden into their lives and saved them all, and Logan would shake his head and insist that they had saved him. In the summer of 1905, Logan and Eleanor celebrated their 27th wedding anniversary surrounded by their entire family. The ranch house had been expanded several times over the years to accommodate gatherings like this, and the yard was full of tables laden with food, children running and playing, adults talking and laughing. Logan looked around at all of it, at the life he and Eleanor had built from such unpromising beginnings, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. He found Eleanor in the crowd and pulled her aside. "Dance with me," he said, even though there was no music. Eleanor laughed but took his hand and they swayed together on the porch while their family watched with indulgent smiles. "What brought this on? Just appreciating what we have, just loving you. I love you too. Always have, always will." They remained like that, dancing to music only they could hear, until the sun set and the stars came out over the Colorado mountains. The bounty hunter and the desperate widow, who had made an impossible bargain and turned it into a love story that would be told for generations. The man who had been searching for a home and the woman who had been drowning in debt, who found in each other exactly what they needed and built a legacy that would last long after they were gone. In the years that followed, Logan and Eleanor continued to be pillars of their family and community. They grew old together gracefully, their love deepening with every passing year. When Logan's health began to fail in his late 70s, Eleanor nursed him with the same determination she had shown in everything else. And when his time came, surrounded by the family he had built, Logan's last words were to Eleanor, "Best decision I ever made, stopping in Florissant that day." "Best decision I ever made saying yes," Eleanor replied, holding his hand as he slipped away peacefully. Eleanor lived several years longer, surrounded by children and grandchildren who adored her. She spent her final years telling stories about Logan, about their unlikely beginning and beautiful life together, making sure that their love story was preserved for future generations. When she passed in her sleep at the age of 81, she was buried beside Logan on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. Their graves were marked with simple stones that bore their names and a single inscription. They built a life from love and courage. The Morrison Jameson Ranch continued through the generations, run by Samuel's descendants and later by Daniel's children. The original house was preserved, and the story of Logan and Eleanor became family legend, told and retold at gatherings and holidays. The tale of the bounty hunter who paid off a widow's debts and won her heart became one of those stories that people in Florissant told visitors, a piece of local history that captured the spirit of the West. Hard lives transformed by determination, strangers becoming family, and love growing in the most unlikely places. Years later, one of their great-great-grandchildren would write down the full story, interviewing family members and researching old documents, creating a record of how Logan Jameson rode into Florissant in 1878 with gold in his saddlebags and a lonely heart, and found Eleanor Morrison with 4 children and crushing debt, and how together they built something that lasted far beyond their own lives. The legacy they left was not just land or money, though the ranch remained prosperous. It was the lesson that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take a chance on someone, that love can grow from practical beginnings into something profound, and that families can be built through choice and commitment just as surely as through blood. Logan and Eleanor's story became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of second chances, and the transformative nature of love freely given and gratefully received. They had started as strangers bound by a business arrangement, and they ended as soulmates who could not imagine life without each other. In the end, what began as a cowboy's practical proposal to a desperate widow became a love story that defined not just 2 lives, but generations that followed. It proved that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, and that courage and hope can transform even the most difficult circumstances into something beautiful and lasting.